Our girl lies peacefully on the grass, dreaming of a free life. She stretches out under the bright sun, celebrating the fact that her grueling service is finally coming to an end. See, she has survived 4 years and 10 months in this hellhole, with only 2 final months standing between her and ultimate freedom. Once this contract is up, she can finally leave this miserable place behind. But rewind 5 years. Originally, she was just an ordinary 25-year-old office worker grinding away in South Korea. One night, she fell asleep while reading a web novel, completely unaware of the nightmare waiting for her. When she woke up, she was trapped in a 13-year-old body. Thrown into a strange room, panic immediately set in. She realized she was stuck inside the novel she had been reading. But survival instincts forced her to keep her head down. She quietly accepted every brutal task thrown her way. A week later, while doing laundry in a wooden tub, a sudden shadow looms over her, and a hand grabs her from behind without warning. It is a loud voice demanding to know why she hasn't returned home. Her grandmother, Madame Shingum, stands there, fuming with rage, glaring at the girl who is utterly terrified. Before she can even make sense of who this woman is, she gets dragged away by her ear, crying out in pain. But instead of a beating, the fierce old lady delivers a surprise. She slides over a steaming plate of fresh meat. Affectionately patting her head, she orders her to eat. It turns out she spent her hard-earned cash just for this meal. Our reincarnated maid can barely handle the sudden warmth. Then, her grandmother questions why she is still risking her neck as a servant. She insists she is still strong enough to provide for them. The genuine love makes Solha's heart ache. See, the body's original owner sold herself to the cult to save her family. She realizes she must survive this hellhole at all costs. But in the demonic cult, contracts are signed in blood. Walking away early is a death sentence, plain and simple. Her grandmother sighs, warning her to stay far away from the cult's ruling elites. She claims a lowly maid will never cross paths with the masters, but warns her to absolutely steer clear of the vicious first young master. That name hits the maid like a jolt of pure electricity. Her grandmother confirms Webeck is a savage monster. He is the prime candidate to become the next heavenly demon. She is ordered to bow her head and remain completely invisible. But the maid recognizes these lethal names from her past life. Trembling, she asks for the name of the second young master. Hearing the name Juk Igen, she completely loses her mind. The terrifying truth finally clicks. She is stuck inside Chronicles of the Heavenly Demon's Descent, a legendary bloodbath, a world locked in a brutal 3-way war for absolute dominance. And standing directly at the center of the carnage is the demonic cult, led by a monstrous protagonist who will paint the entire world red. The protagonist of this bloody tale is none other than Jiak Igion, a man revered for his unrivaled beauty and stoic charm. To the readers, he was an idol, but in reality, his true nature was a waking nightmare. Solha knows the terrifying truth. This man is a complete demon. He ruthlessly strangles his lovers when they annoy him, and slaughtered his own brothers and father to seize absolute control. To survive, she must avoid this psychopath at all costs. Cut back to the present day in the demonic cult. Only 2 months remain until her freedom. She just needs to stay invisible a little longer. Once her contract ends, she'll take her grandmother and run. They'll live a quiet life, far away from this bloodbath. But her peaceful daydream is abruptly shattered. A voice calls out to her across the courtyard. It's Suk, another maid in the cult. She runs up, completely out of breath. Grabbing Solha's hand, she gasps at her incredible luck. She reveals Solha has just been reassigned. She is now the personal maid to the second young master. Solha freezes in sheer terror, her worst nightmare finally coming to life. In the headquarters of the demonic cult, a sudden assignment threatens to derail a maid's path to freedom. Madame Kwok, the head maid, delivers the shocking news with a pleasant smile. She wants our girl Solha to become the personal maid to the infamous second young master. The sudden reassignment hits Solha like a physical blow, dropping her straight to her knees. Knowing the brutal reputation of her new boss, she panics internally. In the cult, a personal promotion usually guarantees wealth and status. Under normal circumstances, any servant would be begging for this chance. But the survival expert clenches her fist, determined to reject the dangerous offer. Madame Kwok is stunned by the sudden rejection. Serving the deadly young lord is a death sentence. So Solha lies, claiming she must resign in 2 months. She uses her aging grandmother's health as a shield to back out. Madame Kwok sighs, seemingly accepting the excuse. But then she pivots, ordering Solha to serve him for just those final 2 months. Solha's victory instantly crumbles as the trap closes. With no backup plan, the head maid demands temporary service. The young servant stammers, desperately trying to find a way out. Madame Kwok cuts her off, ordering her to report for duty tomorrow morning. She shoves a manual into Solha's hands, requiring total memorization by nightfall. Our heroine pleads one last time to escape the nightmare. Madame Kwok leans in, radiating a cold, unspoken threat. With a chilling smile, she makes it clear that refusal is not an option. Solha's hope completely dies. Later that night, Solha vents her frustration. A senior servant listens to the bizarre story in disbelief. Our crying maid sniffling over a promotion makes no sense to her. She cannot comprehend why anyone would weep over such a massive career jump. Solha slams the table, screaming that a single mistake will cost her her life. But the senior laughs it off, calling the girl paranoid. Solha vents her fears, knowing the ruthless cult treats servants like expendable bugs. Her grandmother immediately shuts down the whining with a swift smack to the head, scolding her for entering the dangerous cult in the first place. A hot meal is served, but anxiety completely ruins Solha's appetite. Suddenly, the old woman asks why the previous maid quit the post. The question makes Solha freeze, as she considers the grim reality. She knows the vacancy only exists because her predecessor met a tragic end. Drawing from her knowledge of the novel, the chilling truth is unavoidable. The former maid was likely poisoned, a common fate in this house. The grandmother's face hardens into a look of intense concern. She demands to know if Solha is absolutely certain about the death. Solha cites rumors of the young masters playing with lethal poisons. Realizing the danger, the grandmother orders Solha upstairs after dinner. In the private room, she pulls out a hidden wooden chest. Inside sits a glowing red bead, a legendary antidote worth a fortune. Solha panics, assuming her grandmother spent all their money on it. The old woman scoffs, denying she would ever waste their savings. She winks, claiming a clumsy customer simply left the priceless treasure behind. Solha doesn't buy the lie, but the grandmother insists weirdos exist everywhere. She admits it is only a low-tier bead, useless against elite poisons. Even so, some protection is better than facing a toxic master empty-handed. When her grandmother threatens to tuck it away, Solha desperately begs to keep it. Overjoyed by the lifeline, Solha showers her grandmother, Shingum, with affection. Knowing the old woman would never steer her wrong, she accepts the protective charm. Ultimately, origin doesn't matter. Having a legendary antidote bead changes the entire game. The humor masks a desperate promise to survive, run away, and keep them both safe. Morning arrives and it is time for Solha to face her destiny. Instantly, the rumor mill starts spinning as she walks the grounds. Staring eyes track her every movement with bitter resentment. The sheer hostility of the other maids burns like a physical weight. Being assigned to the young master has painted a massive bullseye on her back. Suddenly, a harsh call demands her immediate attention. 3 rival servants block her path, oozing envy. The leader sneers, accusing Solha of being a conniving opportunist. Solha can only stare, completely caught off guard by the accusation. Before she even starts her shift, she is cornered by jealous rivals looking for trouble. Looking at the newcomers, our girl tries to place a familiar face. It's Doe, a senior maid who wastes no time throwing insults at her. She accuses the former office worker of trying to seduce the second young master. But our sassy servant isn't about to lose a verbal sparring match. The senior maid mocks her upbringing, aiming directly at her grandmother's noodle shop. That is a fatal mistake. Nobody insults her family and gets away with it. They giggle, claiming she was raised to seduce high-ranking men for luxury. Thinking she has won, the bully demands to know why she went mute. But Solha is only silent because she doesn't speak their language. She calmly states she would only reply if they actually made sense, adding that while she has many talents, she hasn't mastered bullshit yet. This level of disrespect instantly sends the senior maids into a raging frenzy. Doe lunges forward, determined to teach the insolent junior a painful lesson. But our girl effortlessly slips under the attack with terrifying speed. The bully's confidence evaporates as her swing hits nothing but empty air. Closing the distance instantly, Solha seizes her opponent's weak point. With a swift, brutal sweep, she throws the bully completely off balance. The senior maid's world flips upside down in a fraction of a second. She crashes hard onto the dirt, completely humbled in front of her friends. Our girl cheerfully explains that a grandmother taught her self-defense and offers to give the remaining seniors a taste of it too. The horrified onlookers realize this is no ordinary maid. She is a monster. But their screams are cut short as the physical lessons continue outside. Solha clarifies she has no interest in their master. She boldly claims to be the only maid in the castle who doesn't care about him. Standing tall, she drops a shocking excuse, telling the stunned bullies that she absolutely detests handsome men. To her, the second young master is a total disaster. She orders the trembling trio to never bother her again. Striking a commanding pose, she tells them to get back to cleaning. Under her glare, the senior maids have no choice but to disperse. But nearby in the trees, a dangerous figure has been listening. Chok Igyeon quietly observes the commotion from above, muttering her words to himself and noting her calling him a disaster. Inside the residence, Solha prepares to start her duties. She immediately regrets making such a massive scene in the front yard. Her goal was to lay low, yet she just fought in broad daylight. She hopes the distance kept the young master from hearing the noise. After all, he might be a legendary monster, but he is still just 19. Gathering her courage, she resolves to just do her job, telling herself not to be scared. Standing right outside his door, the tension rises. Taking a deep breath, she prepares to start her shift. She only wants to finish her work quickly and go home. Steadying her hand, she slides the door open to greet her master. But she immediately collides with a tall, unfamiliar man in green. Looking up, she meets the gaze of a strikingly handsome warrior. Her mind races as she tries to identify this unexpected guest. Realization hits her like a truck. This is Chong Gang. She recognizes him from the novel and tries to contain her shock. He is the heir to the Cheon family, one of the 6 great demonic houses. Known as the Demonic Sword, he is the only one who can calm Chok Ijin. In the future, this dangerous warrior will be feared as the Blood Sword Soul. In the novel, this demonic sword unifies the Murim and remains fiercely loyal. Breaking her trance, the warrior questions if she is the new maid. She quickly introduces herself and he reveals his name is Chongang. He politely pledges to work together, presenting a deceptively gentle front. Gang warns her the master will return soon before stepping out. Wishing him farewell, Solha is finally left alone in the corridor. She cautiously slides the door open to inspect the private quarters. The room is surprisingly bare for a high-ranking cult heir. She notes the bed, remembering the young master's absolute territorial nature. In the novel, anyone else touching this bed was as good as dead. This is a danger zone where numerous trespassers met their end. Desperate women would sneak into his chambers to seduce him, only to be slaughtered in cold blood before uttering a single word. Yet Solha wonders just how handsome this monster actually is. Why would anyone gamble their life just to look at him? The text described him with skin like flour and eyes like the dark night. But she remains highly skeptical that any face is worth dying for. Suddenly her thoughts grind to a halt as a figure appears. Standing right there is a man of lethal, jaw-dropping beauty. His piercing eyes lock onto her, radiating a chilling pressure. She freezes, catching sight of his damp hair and exposed chest. Her face instantly burns with intense panic and embarrassment. In a flash, the terrifying realization hits her like a truck. She is standing directly in front of the legendary executioner, Chok Igon. Stepping into her new master's quarters, the new maid is instantly struck by his sheer beauty. But behind that perfect face lies a cold, piercing gaze that snaps her right back to the brutal reality. Realizing she's staring at a deadly monster, our girl quickly bows her head, because this man is none other than Juk Igyon, the cult's notorious psycho. One wrong move around him means instant death. She rapidly blusters out her introduction as the new personal maid, before fleeing the room, leaving the deadly master staring in silence. She remembers how bold she used to be when handling other servants, but in front of this executioner, she is completely paralyzed. Ijin watches her hasty retreat, analyzing her strange behavior. Outside, Solha's heart is pounding like crazy. She panics, terrified that her abrupt exit might have signed her death warrant. After spending the entire afternoon exhausting herself cleaning the massive estate, she berates herself for almost falling for a psychopath's looks. But she can't help it. His face is just that dangerously attractive. Suddenly, she stops in her tracks as a sharp sound echoes nearby. In the courtyard, the young master is deep in training, wielding his blade. He unleashes a series of devastating high-speed strikes, moving with lethal precision. Solha watches in awe, realizing he is executing these moves, relying purely on raw physical strength without a single drop of internal energy. As Igin catches his breath after the intense drill, she stands frozen, completely mesmerized by his raw power. But reality hits her again. She needs to prepare his meal before he notices her. Rushing back with the prepared tray, Solha spots Senior Chonggang standing guard. The guard turns, his expression calm but observant. She politely announces that she has brought the second young master's meal. He nods, opening the door and letting her proceed straight inside. Stepping into the chamber, she immediately senses the heavy atmosphere. She freezes upon seeing Juk Ijin, who looks completely radiant. The dampness on his skin reveals he has just stepped out of the bath. Solha instantly flushes, struggling to keep her eyes on the tray. She sets down the hot meal and carefully lifts the lid. The young master looks down, questioning the steaming dish. When he asks what it is, she explains it is chicken kalguksu. The warm noodles glisten in a rich, hearty broth. She describes its stamina-restoring benefits, but suddenly cuts herself off. Horror hits her as she realizes noodles are considered commoner food here. Now she understands why the kitchen maids were so flustered by her request. Without a word, the executioner picks up his chopsticks. He takes a bite, silently tasting the simple home-cooked dish. Solha holds her breath, her heart hammering against her chest. Every second of silence feels like an eternity for the terrified maid. Finally, the quiet is broken as he sets his chopsticks down. To her utter shock, he admits the food is actually quite good and filling. Solha stands frozen, completely caught off guard by the rare praise. A massive wave of relief washes over her as she beams. She quickly offers to bring more noodles if he wants them. Later that evening, word of her success spreads through the estate. Chonggang marvels at how the young master finished the entire meal. He reveals that the lethal master usually skips his meals entirely. The guard smiles, genuinely impressed by her unexpected success. Solha notices his exhaustion and asks if he has eaten today. But the guard firmly reminds her that her only duty is to look after the master. Solha smiles, refusing to let the guard starve on duty. She pulls out a specially prepared rice ball, insisting he take it. The guard hesitates, but she refuses to take no for an answer. Winking, she assures him she has plenty of food to share. Caught off guard by her persistence, he finally relents. He accepts the offering with a polite nod of gratitude. A warm smile breaks across his usually stoic face. Our girl beams with pride, thrilled to support her favorite guard. She waves goodbye and makes her exit, feeling on top of the world. But her celebration is cut short as a massive shadow looms ahead. A chilling pressure suddenly fills the hallway. She freezes, slowly looking up at the towering figure blocking her path. The air around them turns freezing cold in an instant. It is Juk Igyon, staring down at her with a deadly glare. Terrified, she wonders if she has already made a fatal mistake. The ruthless master says nothing, his expression hard as stone. He coldly brushes past her without uttering a single word. As soon as he is gone, Solha finally lets out her breath. She stumbles, realizing how close she came to the edge. Surviving a monster like him will require absolute focus. With 2 months left, she vows never to let her guard down again. Our girl Shin Sol-ha notices Jok Ijon behaves normally, with zero intent to harm her. Yet his quiet demeanor does nothing to ease her lingering suspicion. Out of nowhere, the brutal young master starts ordering multiple dishes at once. This forces Sol-ha to run back and forth from the kitchen all day. The workload piles up as she carries heavy stacks of dishes, leaving her completely drained under the blistering sun. Things get worse at Jamie Pavilion, which turns into absolute chaos. The other maids are fighting over items, causing a massive scene. A friendly maid named Suk sits beside Sol-ha, sharing the latest gossip. Everyone claims the sect's most handsome master is finally paying attention to their pavilion. Suk admits she was worried when Sol-ha became his personal maid. She reveals she always knew Sol-ha actively avoided his residence. But now that things are going well, the rumor mill is spinning. Suk hints that the other girls now view Sol-ha in a completely different light. With pleading eyes, she asks for the secret to winning the young master's favor. The sudden request catches Sol-ha off guard, prompting her to immediately pinch Suk's cheek in frustration. She demands Suk take it back, refusing to deal with such nonsense. But she can already feel the burning glare of every ambitious maid in the cult. She frantically tries to clear the misunderstanding, but it's too late. Escaping the noisy crowd, she heads back outside, massaging her aching neck after barely surviving the interrogation. Staying low-key until her contract ends is proving to be nearly impossible. Still, she tries to focus on the positive side of her situation. With only 2 months left, she doubts the higher-ups care about maid drama, until a senior maid in a yellow robe suddenly stops her in the courtyard. The senior maid glares down with an attitude of pure disrespect. She coldly orders Sol-ha to prepare the master's bathwater, leaving her utterly confused. The unexpected order catches Sol-ha completely off guard, as preparing the bathwater wasn't part of her official instructions. But the maids insist it's a direct command from the young master, claiming it's a standard duty they normally rotate. They admit the chaos of her first day made them forget to mention it, leaving her with no choice but to comply. Accepting her fate, our girl dismisses the maids, trying to remain calm. As the other servants head off, she watches them with envy, wishing she could escape this place too. Instead, she trudges toward the bathing chamber, preparing herself for the trial ahead. Meanwhile, the smug senior maid watches her leave, smiling with clear, malicious intent. Inside the chamber, Sol-ha manages to heat the water to what she thinks is a perfect temperature. But anxiety creeps in, realizing this is her first time alone with the brutal master in such a private setting. Suddenly the door creaks open, and the young master steps inside, catching her by surprise. She quickly scurries behind a bamboo screen to give him privacy. The young master approaches the tub, preparing to bathe while she waits anxiously in the shadows. Without a word, he sheds his outer robe. Sol-ha keeps her eyes averted, her heart pounding as she awaits his reaction to the water. Stepping into the tub, the master notes that the water is warmer than usual. Terrified she might have displeased him, Sol-ha panics, wondering if she made it too hot based on her modern habits. But to her immense relief, the young master declares he actually prefers it this way. It's a surprising reaction, since any slight deviation usually triggers his legendary temper. She wonders why the feared warrior is suddenly being so accommodating. Peeking over the divider, she begins to reflect on their strange dynamic. Even though he demands perfection and keeps her on a tight leash, berating her for even the smallest oversight, like casting a shadow on his desk. The master is actually thinking about her, noting how she usually seems to despise him, yet still goes out of her way to prepare appetizing dishes to care for him. She envisions herself as a model servant, offering him a warm, comfortable night. But the brutal master's sharp gaze immediately shatters her daydream. A dripping hand rises as he breaks the tense silence. He questions whether she actually cares or if it's all in his head. Summoning her closer, the young master prepares to interrogate his personal maid. Sol-ha steps forward, trembling under the sudden pressure of his command. He demands to know what she gave away during their last encounter. Caught completely off guard, she tries to process his vague accusation. The deadly warrior's piercing eyes demand an immediate, honest answer. Panicking, our girl frantically searches her memory for any potential mistake. She stammers out a denial, insisting she hasn't given him anything. When he mentions the name Chong Gang, the pieces finally click. She admits to sharing simple rice balls with the senior guard. The master repeats the name, his tone carrying an ominous edge. A wave of dread washes over Sol-ha as he mutters to himself. She remembers a terrifying detail from the original novel. Whenever the demonic master spoke like this, a bloodbath always followed. In the book, his silent brooding was the ultimate warning sign, an indicator that a merciless execution was about to take place. She squeezes her dress, realizing the sheer danger of her situation. Paralyzed with fear, she wonders if rice balls will truly be her demise. Pleading for her life, our protagonist drops to the cold floor, begging for mercy. She bows flat, desperately trying to survive this sudden and terrifying reassignment. But the infamous tyrant is just taking a bath, completely unbothered. With only 2 months left on her contract, she refuses to die here. Survival in this nest of monsters is her only option. Ijin finally speaks, asking when he ever threatened to kill her. The cruel master looks down with a cold, piercing gaze. He mocks her terror, asking if she thinks he eats servants alive. She quickly flatters him, lying through her teeth about his supposed noble character. Pleading for a chance to explain, she hopes to placate him. He smirks, enjoying the absolute desperation of his new prey. Inside her mind, she is cursing this bastard out. The tension is eating her alive while he plays mind games. She explains the rice balls were just scraps meant to stave off hunger. To smooth things over, she promises to prepare a high-quality late-night snack instead. Intrigued by her offering, the young master agrees to let her go. Seol-ha forces a fake smile, relieved to have escaped immediate danger. Bowing low, she quickly exits the bathhouse before he can change his mind. Left alone, the master stares at the door. A dark grin spreads across his face. He has just taken a dangerous liking to his new maid. Outside, under the cover of night, Sol-ha fumes. She stomps off, irritated by his confusing mind games. The stress of dealing with this unpredictable tyrant is already wearing her down. She vows to tell her grandmother all about his terrifying nature once she finally escapes. Suddenly, a voice calls out to her. A senior maid peeks out from the shadows. It is Gay, a veteran servant urging her to keep quiet. Sol-ha approaches, only to be met with an unexpected congratulation, leaving her completely baffled by what is to come. Gay insists on celebrating Sol-ha's first week as the tyrant's personal servant, ignoring her protests. Gay grabs her hand, dragging her away before she can even object. Sol-ha is pulled along, unable to shake off the senior maid. Gay smiles warmly, telling her to relax and follow along. But as they venture deeper into the night, the path grows dark and isolated. The dark trees close in, far away from the safety of the main courtyard. A terrible feeling washes over Sol-ha. This is definitely not a party location. The dense forest around them is completely dead, silent, and ominous. Suddenly, figures emerge from the shadows, waiting for them in the dark. Gay runs ahead, leaving Sol-ha alone to face a group of waiting senior maids. It's a setup. The jealous maids smile, ready to put the newcomer in her place. Sol-ha keeps her guard up, immediately sensing the trap. The confrontation begins as they mock her for thinking she is special. Ga, the senior ringleader, looks down on her with pure disgust. They laugh sneeringly, mocking her failure to please the young master. Sol-ha realizes this isn't about some ancient grudge. They are just furious that a low-ranking maid got promoted over them. Ga steps in close, aggressively poking her chest and accusing her of insolence. But Sol-ha refuses to back down, coldly reminding them that they attacked first. Outraged by her defiance, the senior maid raises her hand. She unleashes a swift, violent strike aimed directly at Sol-ha's face. The wind howls as Sol-ha leans back, narrowly avoiding the unexpected blow. She can't believe these lunatics are actually trying to assault her out of nowhere. Ga isn't planning to let this go with a simple slap anymore. Cracking her knuckles, the senior maid decides it's time for a brutal beatdown. She charges forward, aiming to tear the newcomer apart. But Sol-ha's instincts are already sharp. Utilizing high-level footwork, our protagonist dances around the strikes effortlessly. She quickly realizes GA is actually trained in martial arts. That's why they brought her here, expecting a swift execution. But despite the aggressive onslaught, they can't even graze her. Driven mad with frustration, GA demands to know how long she can keep dodging. But Solha has had enough of playing defense. Remembering the harsh training from her monstrous master, she unleashes a counterattack. A single heavy blow sends the senior ringleader flying through the air. The remaining maids scream in horror as GA hits the dirt, completely knocked out. Before she can celebrate, a sudden shadow blitzes past her. Uninvited guests land right in the middle of the dark forest. Before Solha can react, a hand wraps around her neck. A desperate fugitive holds a blade to her throat, demanding the pursuers back off. Solha can only curse her terrible luck in this moment. She realizes this idiot made a fatal mistake, grabbing a lowly maid as a hostage. Sure enough, the cult guards don't care about her life and keep closing the distance. Feeling the cold blade bite into her skin, panic sets in. If she doesn't think of something fast, her contract ends tonight, in blood. Realizing the guards are going to attack anyway, she desperately calls for a halt. Surrounded on all sides, the situation is completely hopeless. With the blade drawing blood, she realizes this might be her final stand. With a cold blade pressed against her neck, our girl Solha is utterly helpless, praying for anyone to save her. But out of the dark, a shadow descends. Surrounded by hostile cultists in the middle of the deep forest, her life hangs by a thread. Squeezing her eyes shut, she braces for the absolute worst. Suddenly, a devastating streak of red energy tears through the night, slicing right toward her captor. The lethal blow strikes, sending blood splattering into the air. As the hostage-taker screams in agony, our girl stumbles back in absolute shock. The attacker crashes to the ground, neutralized by a legendary, high-level martial arts technique. This is the Shattering Jade Explosive Technique, a deadly move reserved only for Supreme Masters. Before the dust even settles, the remaining cultists immediately drop to their knees in absolute terror. Standing under the cold moonlight is the infamous young master himself, Jeok Ijon. His icy gaze locks onto the scene, radiating pure dominance. He slowly steps forward. Approaching the trembling maid, the young master looms over her with an unreadable expression. Without saying a word, he reaches out and firmly grabs her chin. He inspects the fresh, bloody cut on her neck. His eyes narrow, realizing just how close she came to death. But the danger isn't over yet. Stepping in front of Solha, Ijon unleashes a terrifying surge of red energy from his palm. The chaotic power crackles, ready to obliterate everything in its path. He lets loose a shockwave of raw destruction. Watching the explosive aftermath, our girl realizes that a direct hit from that monstrous power would have blown her to pieces. Witnessing the young master execute her captor in cold blood, our girl can only watch as the crimson energy vaporizes the target. Suddenly, a powerful voice demands they stop, freezing everyone in their tracks. Both Solha and Ijon turn toward the source of the pressure, as the surviving cultists instantly throw themselves to the dirt. Sensing the overwhelming aura of a god-tier powerhouse, Solha drops to her knees, trembling as she realizes who has just arrived. This is one of the 10 venerables of the martial world, the supreme leader of the demonic cult himself, the heavenly demon. The absolute ruler steps into the clearing accompanied by his entourage. Greeting the young master is another high-ranking official, who offers a polite greeting that is immediately met with a cold glare. Ijon refuses to play along with the fake pleasantries, demanding they get straight to the point with the chief of the Ghost Soul Pavilion, Gong Peichon, the demonic cult's top strategist. Our girl recognizes the name of this fearsome intelligence faction, wondering how a man who looks more like a scholar holds such a deadly position. Ijon demands to know who the dead man was, and the chief reveals the casualty was actually a spy from the Martial Arts Alliance. The mole had infiltrated their ranks for 5 years, before realizing his cover was blown and desperately trying to make a run for it. Gong Peichon immediately accepts blame for the security breach. But he quickly redirects the focus, questioning why the second young master is out so late. Ijon casually replies that he only stepped in to protect his endangered maid. The pavilion chief is stunned, struggling to believe his ears. Even our girl is left utterly baffled by the young master's claim. The cult leader steps forward, questioning Ijin's sudden protective behavior. Terrified, Solha immediately bows down before the ultimate authority. The heavenly demon stares down at her, analyzing her presence. He commands her to stand up and look him in the eyes. Fearing the worst, she slowly rises to her feet. She locks eyes with the cult leader, trying to remain calm. The Supreme Master's expression instantly changes to surprise. Solha immediately notices his strange reaction. The absolute ruler demands to know her name. She politely introduces herself as the humble servant Shin Sol Ha. The leader murmurs, prompting his strategist to ask if he knows the girl. Dismissing the question, the leader waves it off. He claims she simply reminded him of someone else, ordering his men to withdraw. As the danger clears, the young master stands close to Solha. Our girl realizes she owes her life to the ruthless master's timely intervention. Standing beside him under the moonlight, she decides she should thank him. She offers her sincere gratitude for keeping her safe. But Ijin coldly points out that a poisoned blade would have already killed her. He touches the fresh wound on her neck. He argues that he failed to truly keep her safe. The intense proximity leaves our girl completely frozen. She secretly remembers she carries an antidote bead anyway. Knowing it's best to keep her secrets hidden, she says nothing. She simply smiles, but the young master's gaze remains deeply troubled. The young master abruptly turns away, leaving her in the dark. Seolhan nervously watches him go, sensing his growing frustration. Meanwhile, the pavilion chief wraps up the messy cleanup down below. She approaches as the cultists prepare to transport the surviving spy. But as she looks closer at Gong Pei-chan, she stops dead in her tracks. Though they've never met, an eerie sense of familiarity washes over her. The strategist walks away, completely unaware of her sudden suspicion. In the quiet courtyards, our girl Solha tries to catch her breath. Yesterday was an absolute disaster zone that almost cost her everything. First, she was cornered by bullies, then held hostage at blade point. And to top it off, the supreme leader of the cult took notice of her. With a lifetime of trauma packed into yesterday, she prays for a peaceful afternoon. But peace is a luxury that doesn't exist in this place, because the heavenly demon himself is already looming right behind her. His sudden voice sends a shiver straight down her spine. She immediately spins around to face the absolute authority of the cult. Dropping to the ground, she shows absolute obedience. She pays her respects, hoping to avoid any sudden execution. But the leader commands her to stand, rejecting the formal etiquette. He immediately starts probing for information, asking her to confirm her name. She confirms it, only to face a barrage of personal questions. Suspicions flare up, but she must answer honestly. She reveals she is 17, raised by her grandmother outside the castle. The patriarch presses further, demanding to know exactly when her parents passed away. She explains that her father died in an accident before her birth, and her mother lost her life during childbirth, leaving her completely orphaned. The old master listens intently, his eyes narrowing as he digs for a specific name. When he asks for her father's identity, she gives the name Shin Won-pyong. The name hangs in the air as the leader processes the answer. He realizes she is not the descendant of the person he suspected. Solha watches him closely, wondering who he was trying to find. The tense atmosphere begins to ease as the inquiry finally wraps up. She realizes she was just tested for some hidden family connection. Without a word, the cult leader pulls something from his sleeve. He drops a small, heavy pouch directly into the young servant's trembling hands. Inside the fabric, a brilliant metallic chime rings out. She pulls out a stunning, red-jeweled floral hairpin, completely stunned by the unexpected gift. Why would the supreme leader hand her this luxurious ornament out of nowhere? The young maid stands frozen, completely stunned. As she looks up, she catches a fleeting look. It is an expression of deep longing. He softly thanks her, his eyes still piercing right through her. He is not seeing her, but reminiscing about someone else. He abruptly bids her farewell, promising to drop by occasionally. This threat of unscheduled visits sends her stress levels skyrocketing. Before she can recover, heavy footsteps approach from behind. A blazing aura of concern cuts the silence. Her grandmother charges into the courtyard, radiating pure fury. Seolha gasps in shock at her guardian's sudden arrival. The old woman immediately grabs her, checking for sword wounds. She angrily vows to tear whoever hurt her granddaughter to pieces. Squeezing her cheeks, Solha asks who leaked the news. It was a regular customer from their noodle shop. The culprit is Yang Sobek, who was supposed to be training. The grandmother reveals the boy actually got accepted somewhere. While adjusting her collar, she explains the boy's destination. He somehow passed the brutal exam for the Blood Shadow Squad. Solha is stunned, realizing she is now his senior. Relieved that she is safe, the grandmother prepares to leave. She gives the girl a warm, comforting head pat. She reminds her that only 2 months remain on her contract. Wrapping her in a tight hug, she pleads for them to stick together. With a final wave, the old woman departs toward the gates. Waving goodbye, deep affection fills the young maid's heart. But she suddenly freezes as a critical memory flashes in her mind. It all clicks. That mysterious supreme leader was actually a regular at her family's noodle shop. She remembers his cold eyes hidden beneath a straw hat. Realizing her grandmother has a deep, secret connection to the cult leader sends her head spinning. In her memory, the two of them spoke like old friends. She vows to uncover the truth during her next vacation. But she cannot let her guard down just yet. Seeking to finish her chores, she rushes back to her quarters. She slides the door open, hoping for a peaceful room. Instead, her terrifying master, Chok Egon, is waiting right there. The sudden ambush stops her dead in her tracks. Panic instantly takes over as she scrambles for composure. Sweating bullets, she nervously asks why he has arrived so early. The cold master takes a slow, imposing step forward. He demands to know exactly who taught her martial arts. Our girl tries to play dumb, forcing a desperate smile. But the young master sees right through her fragile lies. In a flash, he grabs her wrist in a vice-like grip. He pulls her close, physically testing her reflexes. A massive wave of pressure floods her senses. As his raw energy surges, she realizes she is completely trapped. Caught in the arms of the young master, our girl feels a surge of overwhelming power passing between them. She looks up, paralyzed by the raw energy radiating directly from him. Chok Egon locks onto her, demanding to know if she is blind to her own body's condition. The undercover talent plays dumb, denying any knowledge to avoid blowing her cover as a simple maid. But the master is not buying the act, ordering her to undergo 4 hours of training every single day. She protests in panic, questioning who would waste their time training a lowly servant. With a cold glare, the master of the house makes it clear that he will do it himself. The very next day at the training grounds, her hands are already shaking like leaves. Forced into a grueling horse stance, our girl is pushed to her limit under the bodyguard's watchful eye. She grits her teeth, muscle failure rapidly setting in as the agony mounts. See, she thought he was bluffing after her recent run-in with a martial arts spy. But now she is stuck, trembling in the dirt, convinced this is just a form of torture. Seeing her struggle, Chonggang steps up to ask if they should stop for today. The guard fears she might collapse, but the master merely scoffs at the concern. Instead, Chok Egon poses a calculating question to his subordinate to test his observation. The guard admits a normal woman could hold this stance for 15 minutes at most. But as the master steps closer, the terrifying reality is laid bare. Our girl has already crossed the 30-minute mark without breaking. Panic sets in as she realizes the tactical trap he laid for her. Holding the stance too long has just exposed her hidden, monstrous talent. The master demands to know if she's still feigning ignorance about her training. Flustered, our girl tries to play down her skills to keep a low profile. She swears she only learned a tiny bit, hoping he'll buy the lie. But the young master sees right through her desperate defense. He points out that the dormant energy inside her is massive. He drops a bombshell. She's carrying over 60 years of cultivated power. Our girl can barely process having such an insane amount of energy. It's scattered across her body, a ticking time bomb, waiting to explode. The guard asks if she consumed an elixir, but she denies buying anything so expensive. The master chuckles, realizing she swallowed a legendary pill without even knowing it. He commands her to immediately take the lotus position to begin training. As she complies, the young master orders his guard to secure the perimeter. Without warning, he presses his hand against her back. He directs her to gather the scattered energy and pull it into her core. He explains this process is far more intense than basic meridian unlocking. They are going to unlock all 8 extraordinary meridians at once. Doing so will allow her to commune directly with heaven and earth. Our maid gulps, realizing the massive scale of what's happening. She actually has a shot at becoming the legendary master she always read about. He tells her to stay sharp as the process begins. The master channels his own force straight into her back. She trembles as the foreign power begins to surge inside her. A freezing, razor-sharp energy floods her veins, threatening to tear her apart. In her mind, the pathway of light opens up. She locks onto the path ahead. The rookie prepares to unlock her power. First target is the Jangang acupoint. She musters all her strength to break through the barrier. With a mental strike, she shatters the first gate. The momentum carries her forward. She realizes the start isn't as tough as she feared. Determined, she rides this wave deeper. The energy flows rapidly through the Yosu and Yoyangwian acupoints. It blasts straight into the Myungmun acupoint next, but the trial is far from over. Red, menacing energy manifests right before her. The master's power reaches out to guide her. His external force acts as a steering wheel. It leads her untamed energy forward. He points her directly toward the due meridian. She pushes ahead, but the toll is massive. Back in reality, excruciating pain hits like bugs crawling under her skin. Her vision blurs as she starts losing focus. Sensing her weakness, the master yells at her to snap out of it. He warns that failing here means becoming a cripple for life. Refusing to waste this golden opportunity, she grits her teeth. The maid forces herself to endure the agonizing heat. She knows passing out now is a death sentence. A single slip will trigger a fatal chi deviation. She begs her body to hold on just a little longer. The pressure reaches a violent boiling point. Suddenly, her eyes snap open in the blinding light. Drenched in sweat, she lets out a ragged breath. A brief wave of relief washes over her, but her exhausted body can no longer hold on. As her vision fades, the young master catches her before she collapses. With the breakthrough complete, she slips into unconsciousness, leaving the master and his guard to assess her raw potential. Shin Solha slowly wakes up, wrapping herself in unusually soft blankets. Something feels off. Opening her eyes, she realizes she is not in her own room. The realization hits like a lightning bolt, forcing her upright. She remembers circulating energy with her dangerous master, Chok Igyon, before passing out. But how did she end up here? A cold, familiar voice breaks the morning silence from across the chamber. The sudden sound makes her heart jump straight into her throat. Trembling, she steps out of the bed to face her master. Her blood runs cold when she sees exactly where she is. The young master calmly sips his tea, watching his maid's reaction. Solha immediately bows, begging for forgiveness for sleeping in his bed. Ijeon looks down at her, questioning why she is still so terrified. Knowing his murderous reputation, staying calm is simply not an option. She frantically lies, praising his character to keep her head attached. He sets his cup down with a sharp clink, seeing right through it. He calls her out for constantly plotting ways to run away. Our girl sweat drops, realizing her secret escape plans are completely exposed. Ijeon demands to know the real reason behind her avoidance. She tries to play it off, desperately asking him to forget this mistake. But the master is not letting her off the hook that easily. He drops a bombshell, admitting that he was the one who did it. He reveals he personally carried her all the way to his bed. With total indifference, he asks if there was a problem with that. She is left utterly stunned, knowing this man suffers from severe mysophobia. It makes no sense for a ruthless germophobic killer to carry a lowly maid. But before she can process this, Ijeon demands they begin circulating her energy immediately. He stands over her, prompting her to test the results of last night's training. With a deep breath, our heroine prepares herself and sits down to focus. She closes her eyes, calling upon the dormant power within. Suddenly, a brilliant surge of blue spiritual energy erupts around her body. Every single blocked meridian in her body instantly snaps open. She opens her eyes in shock, completely stunned by her own growth. Ijin looks on with a smug grin, asking how it feels to finally be an expert. Grateful to be alive, the maid bows repeatedly, praising his incredible kindness. But the master tells her to save the thanks. Their training has only just begun. He commands her to forget her chores and focus solely on his meals and martial arts. He has already ordered more staff to handle the heavy lifting around the pavilion. Solha panics, wondering if he is secretly training her to be his personal bodyguard. Suddenly, a knock at the door announces an unexpected visitor. Tension fills the room as a guard announces the first young master is outside. Ijin coldly orders him to be brought in without hesitation. Solha freezes, recognizing the name of Ijin's cunning brother, Jok Weebek. The doors slide open to reveal a flamboyant figure, draped in white robes. With a theatrical smile, the eldest brother makes his grand entrance. Weebek cheerfully greets Ijin, acting as if they are the closest of allies. He casually throws his arm over the deadly master's shoulder with zero fear. Brushing off the cold reception, Weebek takes a seat at the table. He claims he had to visit personally since Ijin always avoids him. But his eyes immediately lock onto Solha, smugly pointing out his brother's new favorite maid. Weebek smirks, immediately trying to push his brother's buttons. He mockingly suggests that the young master has developed an interest in women. Solha stands frozen, taken aback by this sudden accusation. She has never spoken to him, yet he uses her as a pawn. Weebek sips his tea, enjoying the tension he just created. He claims he would have taken her if he saw her first. Yigion remains dead silent, his glare growing colder. Weebek laughs, telling his brother not to act shy. He watches Solha with predatory eyes, noting her potential beauty. Without decency, he invites the maid to his bedchamber tonight. Solha is disgusted, her stomach turning at the audacity. She wants to punch him, but her low status forces silence. Suddenly, Ijin steps forward, breaking his silence with a venomous retort. He demands Weebek keep his filthy mouth shut in his quarters. The air freezes as the two brothers lock eyes. Ijin calls the comments vulgar enough to gouge his own ears out. The insult hits Weebek hard, shattering his playful facade. A sudden crash rattles the room as tempers boil over. Furious, Weebek snaps at the disrespect from his younger brother. He lunges forward, grabbing Ijin by the collar. The violent gesture signals that all pleasantries are over. Weebek sneers, letting his true malicious nature slip. He asks if Ijin is defensive because he fears losing the maid. Ijion does not flinch, staring back with chilling indifference. Weebek declares he is taking Solha today no matter what. Ijin's expression shifts into a dark grin. He dares his brother to try taking her by force through a duel. Solha watches in horror as the conflict escalates. Crimson killing intent begins to fill the air. The deadly master smiles, ready to turn this dispute into a bloodbath. Igeon dares his brother to back up his threats, mockingly questioning if he actually has the guts to face him. Jok Weebek seethes with rage, gritting his teeth as the humiliating rejection stings his pride. He can barely contain his fury, his veins popping from the sheer disrespect. But with no other options, he releases his grip and backs away. Storming out of the pavilion, he spits out insults to mask his bruised ego. With the threat finally gone, our heroine lets out a heavy sigh of relief. She quickly turns to thank her terrifying savior for stepping in. But instead of a warm response, a cold, suffocating pressure fills the room. The cruel master glares back, his eyes burning with intense possessiveness as he growls. Solha freezes in sheer confusion, wondering if she heard him correctly. Before she can process this, Chiak Igion decides he cannot wait any longer. His original training plan is out the window, replaced by immediate urgency. His menacing gaze leaves absolutely no room for negotiation. He orders her to change her clothes and report to the training grounds instantly. Realizing her peaceful night is ruined, the poor maid can only comply. Outside, the loyal aide, Changang, can only pity the grueling night ahead of her. By the next morning, a brand new crisis awaits the exhausted maid. Rumors of her spending the night with the young master have already spread. The gossip-hungry maids swarm her, demanding to know every single detail. Desperate to clear her name, Solha frantically waves her hands. But her jealous colleagues aren't buying the sudden excuse so easily. She pleads that staying up all night doesn't mean they actually slept together. Fearing the worst, our heroine quickly cooks up a desperate cover story. She claims the second young master was actually down with a severe illness. Instantly, the maids begin daydreaming about their usually terrifying master. In their wild imaginations, he is a gentle, sweet-talking romantic. But Solha brings them back to reality, claiming he collapsed. She paints a dramatic picture of him burning up with a massive fever. The maids envision him sweating and helpless, completely at her mercy. Her fake story works perfectly, drawing immediate gasps of sympathy. She lies that she stayed up all night assisting the demonic doctor. Just as she thinks she is safe, a shadow looms. A suspicious colleague demands to know if she is telling the truth. Seolha plasters on a smile, realizing her cover story is wearing thin. To completely shut down the gossip, she needs a decisive blow. She insists she has absolutely no romantic interest in her master. Then she drops a massive bombshell to clear her name. Blushing on cue, she confesses she actually likes someone else. She claims her mystery man just passed the elite squad entrance exam. The sudden gossip instantly derails the maid's suspicions. Privately, our clever maid apologizes to her friend for the shameless lie. She hopes Yang So-bak won't mind being her fake boyfriend for now. By sunset, she believes the crisis is finally averted. But elsewhere in the pavilion, the rumor mill is already spinning. By the next turn, the gossip is mutated into a wedding announcement. The entire courtyard is now whispering about her upcoming marriage. Walking back, the poor girl is practically dragging her feet in despair. Her single lie has officially snowballed into an unstoppable disaster. She tells herself to endure just 2 more months until her contract ends. Suddenly, she spots a familiar figure standing near the courtyard. Red hair, familiar build, there is no mistaking his identity. The real Yang So-bak smiles back, completely unaware he is now her fake fiancé. Solha is stunned to see her friend suddenly appear in the courtyard. So-bak charges forward without a second thought. He has a massive, starry-eyed grin, completely thrilled to see her. But our heroine's body reacts faster than her brain. Before he can even get close, she prepares to defend herself. She reflexively plants a brutal strike right into his gut. Horrified by her own martial arts instincts, she quickly apologizes to the groaning recruit. But instead of being mad, the dense guy thinks she's just acting shy. Solha is immediately disgusted by his bizarre, delusion-filled logic. Clutching his chest, So-bak takes a deep, dramatic breath. He declares they should get married this very day, ready to seal the deal. The maid freezes in utter shock at the sheer absurdity. Her brain completely short-circuits as the reality of her lie hits home. It turns out he fell for the wedding rumors hook, line, and sinker. She writhes in shame, realizing she dragged an innocent kid into her mess. Steeling herself, she decides it is time to break the illusion. She begins to confess she only used his name to escape the maids, when suddenly, a cold, familiar voice cuts through the air, sending shivers down her spine. Looking toward the pavilion gate, a dark shadow looms over them. The terrifying master appears, his eyes blazing with absolute fury as he demands answers. He growls to know exactly who is getting married, and to whom. Joki Jion steps out of his quarters, his presence immediately demanding attention as he corners his maid alongside an intruder who shouldn't even be here. The young master's gaze is razor-sharp, radiating pure hostility, causing Solha to gulp in sheer terror, wondering what she did wrong. Before the tension snaps, the red-haired intruder tries to find his voice, bowing deeply to pay his respects to the formidable young master. He identifies himself as a rookie from the Blood Shadow Squad's 10th Strike Unit, introducing himself as Yang So-bak. But this explanation only fuels Ijin's suspicion. Ijin demands to know why a rookie is sniffing around his exclusive maid. As So-bak stammers, Solha realizes she has to step in before things turn bloody. She immediately throws herself between them, desperately trying to defuse the situation. With a subtle wink, she silently begs her friend to leave before he gets killed. So-bak takes the hint, flashing a bright smile before making his exit. As he walks away, a massive weight lifts off Solha's shoulders. She celebrates her friend's quick thinking, but Igeon is far from finished. He directly confronts her about the rumors of a marriage proposal, demanding to know if she actually plans to marry that rookie. Solha quickly denies it, realizing she has to explain the entire mess. Inside, she confesses to creating a fake lover to kill the rumors of their night together. She expected Elder Ma to handle the gossip, but the suspicion never faded. Now, her desperate scheme has dragged her closest friend into the crosshairs. She never expected Sobek to actually believe the rumor and come looking for her. Ijeon demands final confirmation of their status, and Solha vehemently denies any romance. Solha insists Sobek is nothing more than a childhood friend, the very thought of marrying him sending shivers down her spine. The young master questions if lying about a lover was actually necessary, catching her completely off guard. She defends her lie, claiming it was for his honor and her own survival in the cult. She explains that being linked to a mere maid would tarnish his fearsome reputation. Putting on a fake smile, she claims she only wanted to keep him from getting angry. But her excuses fall flat when the young master points out a fatal flaw in her logic. He reveals he wasn't angry in the first place, leaving her excuses completely shattered. His piercing gaze locks onto her as he analyzes her desperate attempts to pacify him. Realizing she dug her own grave for nothing, terror paralyzes her. She clenches her dress, bracing for whatever punishment this ruthless master might hand down. Instead of punishing her, he suddenly shifts focus, asking how close she is to the rookie. She admits they are close childhood friends, internally wondering why he even cares about gossip. The conversation takes another unexpected turn as he suddenly asks about her grandmother. Surprised he even remembers her family, she quickly replies that her grandmother is just an ordinary civilian. She mentions that the elderly woman runs a simple noodle shop, piquing the young master's interest. A rare, subtle smirk plays on his lips as a new plan seems to form. Panic strikes her instantly as she frantically attempts to wave off the idea. But before she can deflect, the young master stands up, demanding to know the exact location of this shop. But before Ijeon can march out, a sudden voice interrupts. The heavenly demon himself steps into the room, smiling. Solha instantly drops to the floor, bowing in absolute terror. Ijeon demands to know why his father has suddenly shown up. The cult leader claims he's just visiting, but his eyes lock onto the maid. He immediately asks Ijeon if he was the one who fixed her broken body. He notes that the chaotic energy in her body has finally settled. The old monster praises his son for a job well done. Solha is chilled to the bone, realizing both monsters knew her secret all along. When asked about her training, Ijeon boasts he's already teaching her deadly sword styles. The leader strokes his chin, amused by her unnaturally fast progress. Then he drops a bombshell, asking if she wants to learn from him too. Solha panics, wondering why the ruler of the cult would tutor a lowly servant. But the supreme leader persists, offering to teach her any martial art she desires. She swallows hard, trying to calculate the absolute safest play. Her dream of flying under the radar is officially dead. Yet standing before the strongest man alive, she realizes this is her ultimate ticket to survival. If she has to choose a technique, she knows exactly what she needs. Steeling her resolve, she looks the cult leader dead in the eyes. She demands to learn the ultimate movement technique, solely so she can run away and survive. Inside the quiet chambers, the elder bursts into laughter, highly amused by the girl's sheer audacity. He commends her high spirit, acknowledging the fiery spark within the young maid. Now comes the real test, as the master decides which legendary technique would suit her best. Our girl's heart races, knowing her entire future hinges on this very moment. Finally, the elder smiles, his choice solidified. Moving out to the courtyard under the night sky, he warns her that he will only show the technique once, demanding absolute focus. With a sudden shift, he initiates the legendary Demon Sovereign's Soaring Sky technique. It is a divine lightfoot movement, a sacred art meant to defy gravity itself. The young maid can barely process the sheer weight of what is happening. See, this supreme style belongs exclusively to the legendary Demon Empress from the cult's history. During a past crisis, she held the fractured sect together before handing over the throne. She then vanished into myth, leaving her ultimate legacy behind. Inheriting such a monumental power is almost too insane to believe. But out on the training grounds, there is no room for doubt. The elder explains that true Lightfoot requires making the body entirely weightless, like a soaring phoenix. Golden energy swirls as he glides across the courtyard with impossible grace. The core principles are spring, flow, and absolute harmony. Stepping forward, Solha attempts to replicate the intricate forms. He recites the mnemonic chant, instructing her to channel internal energy straight to her feet. Exhaling slowly, the young prodigy focuses and begins to circulate her power. Surprisingly, the energy moves through her meridians without a single hint of resistance. The complex technique clicks instantly, flowing as naturally as breathing. She bounces with ease, finding the legendary art almost effortless. But the moment her foot lightly taps the ground, her eyes widen in shock. Suddenly, her light tap triggers a massive surge of power, sending our girl launching straight up into the air like a firework. Looking down, the entire massive demonic cult compound shrinks beneath her feet. Terrified of the sheer altitude, she completely panics. But she quickly gathers her wits and stabilizes her posture mid-flight. Tapping down onto a high roof, she lands perfectly before the white-haired elder. He smiles, asking how she liked her very first flight. The young maid is completely awestruck, realizing the sheer speed and freedom of this movement technique. She vows to fully master this ultimate style and make it her own. Commending her rare talent, the master decides it's time for real-world practice. He suggests taking the training up the dangerous back mountain. But before they can set off, heavy footsteps echo through the courtyard. The cold young master himself appears, offering to personally escort her. The elder is relieved, but Solha is instantly filled with dread. She tentatively asks why the feared lord is tagging along. He dryly points out his elderly father shouldn't be climbing mountains. Knowing she won't get a moment of peace, our girl sighs as the elder leaves. She bids her new teacher farewell before preparing for the trip. Watching the young duo, the elder is suddenly struck by nostalgia, remembering the legendary demon empress when she was that very same age. He muses that her child would have been just as old today. His loyal subordinate quietly asks if he harbors any regrets. The old master pauses, pondering the bittersweet memories of the past. But deep down, he knows one thing for absolute certain. Given a second chance, he would repeat his actions in a heartbeat. Admitting that love turns even the wisest men into complete fools, even if that love ultimately doomed his entire future and became a fatal trap he could never escape. Meanwhile, high up on the mountain trails, a loud shout echoes through the trees. Seolha leaps through the canopy, still unable to believe she is performing the legendary arts she once only read about. She bounds effortlessly from tree to tree, testing the limits of her newfound agility. Tapping onto a high branch, she realizes this incredible power is undeniably real. Deep in the forest, the young maid pushes her speed to the absolute limit. But questions begin to cloud her mind, distracting her from the dangerous terrain. She wonders how she obtained 60 years' worth of formidable internal energy. Could her grandmother have somehow engineered this miracle? Gathering and transferring that much power is a near impossible feat of martial arts, and her grandmother is supposed to be just a humble noodle shop owner. In that split second of distraction, her foot completely slips from the bark. Losing her footing, the untrained beginner tumbles out of the sky. She curses her own stupidity for losing focus at such a critical height. Gravity takes hold, dragging her downward through the rushing branches. Terror sets in as she tries to right her body mid-plummet. She reaches out desperately, but there is nothing to break her fall. The descent is too fast, and the forest floor is rushing up. Impact is seconds away, and she is completely out of control. With no other choice, she screams for the young master's help. Bracing for a bone-shattering landing, she shuts her eyes tight. Suddenly, a powerful hand cuts through the air to intercept her fall. Jiakigian swoops in, catching her securely in his arms mid-air. He lands heavily on the forest floor, absorbing the entire impact. Trembling in shock, the dazed maid opens her eyes to look at her savior. The cold lord gazes down at her, urgently asking if she is unharmed. The second young master swoops in, catching our girl mid-air and checking her condition. Our heroine's mind completely short-circuits as she realizes the absurdity of her situation. She's being carried like a princess by the most feared tyrant in the cult. She starts squirming, prompting him to demand where exactly she is hurt. The young master's intense glare demands answers, refusing to let go. She forces an awkward laugh, trying to play off the shock. She politely begs him to put her down because she is fine, but he only tightens his grip, warning her not to move carelessly. Without giving her a choice, he holds her close and marches forward. He coldly announces they are heading straight to the medical pavilion. Before she can protest, he leaps across rooftops like a dark shadow. Moments later, they arrive at the imposing pavilion deep within the fortress. The young master kicks the heavy doors open with zero respect. The startled staff instantly freeze, stuttering at his sudden personal arrival. He ignores their panic, demanding the head physician's whereabouts. A trembling servant points them deeper into the facility. The boss man steps forward, prompting our girl to look up in curiosity. Out steps an older man, scratching his head and asking what brought them here. This casual senior is none other than Pyo Jinyang, the head physician. Solha is baffled by how casually this man addresses the young master. The elder asks Chok Ijin how he has been doing lately. The young master's face remains cold as ice. He addresses the elder as his maternal uncle, leaving our girl dumbfounded. The physician stares at Solha, highly suspicious of this pairing. He wonders what kind of child could make his nephew act like this. See, the young master's late mother hailed from the poison-wielding Mandok Pyo clan. Knowing his mother's lineage explains exactly why Ijin is immune to deadly poisons. Our heroine connects the dots while the tyrant demands his uncle treat her. Jin Yang spots the dirt and scratches on her leg, highly skeptical of the drama. She dies of embarrassment as the young master claims she might have severe internal damage. When the physician asks what happened, the truth comes out. She just fell from a tree. The uncle finds the entire situation utterly ridiculous. He declares she is perfectly fine, refusing to even take her pulse. But the young master snaps, pointing at the minor scratches on her face. He puts words in her mouth, ignoring her silent mental screams. The name finally registers, and the doctor realizes who this girl is. He eyes the legendary Maid who somehow survived the tyrant's service. A knowing grin spreads across the physician's face. He confesses he was highly curious about the girl who tamed his nephew. Our girl can only stare back in sheer confusion. He instructs them to set her down so he can retrieve his medicine. He pulls out a pristine jar presenting his prized creation. It is a rare miracle cure capable of erasing any wound within a day. She gazes at the glowing ointment in absolute awe. The proud uncle starts bragging about his masterpiece, making Solha sweat. When the doctor steps up to apply it, the young tyrant instantly intercepts. The uncle watches with an amused smirk, seeing right through him. Jin Yang teases that a scar would break someone's heart, referring to Ijin. But our oblivious heroine completely misinterprets the warning. She wonders who else could possibly care about her minor scratches. Before the physician can react, the young master moves in. He snatches the ointment straight out of his uncle's hand. This blatant disrespect leaves the older man shouting in frustration. Ijin drops the jar into Solha's hands, telling her to do it herself. He leans in close, ordering her to take care of her own wounds. Solha quickly accepts the medicine, bowing in gratitude as the young master steps back. The physician mutters that treating a mere servant directly is highly improper anyway. Jin Yang warns the girl to return immediately if her body starts feeling strange later on. Our heroine thanks the elder, relieved the tense ordeal is finally over. She realizes serving the cult's tyrant might actually come with some massive perks. Getting a legendary top-tier healing ointment for simple scratches is a huge win. A genuine smile finally returns to her face. By the time night falls over the demonic fortress, she counts today as a success. Back at the quarters, her fellow maid Suk screams in horror at Solha's scratched face. Solha tries to play it down, nervously claiming she simply fell from a tree. Desperate to avoid explaining the young master's involvement, she quickly changes the subject. That is when she notices Suk is dressed in incredibly fine silk. Suk excitedly explains that her busy farming parents visited her for the first time in 5 years. But when Suk mentions they toured the main castle, Solha freezes. She knows the fortress rules are absolute. She carefully asks if ordinary families can easily secure visitor entry permits. Suk reminds her that the inner castle is strictly off-limits to commoners. A cold sweat breaks out as a terrifying realization hits our heroine. See, her own grandmother managed to enter this forbidden sanctuary. And she did it twice, walking right past the cult's deadliest guards. With the mysterious spiritual medicine already in her body, Solha realizes her grandmother's true identity is a massive, dangerous secret. Back in her quarters, our low-ranking maid sits cross-legged to circulate her internal energy. The pulsing blue aura flows smoothly through her meridians. She stretches out, feeling completely refreshed by the morning meditation. Looking at her hands, she is amazed the rare ointment healed her injuries overnight. The pain is completely gone, leaving no trace of her recent ordeal. She flops back onto her bed, wishing she could practice her soaring sky technique. But she still dreads the volatile mood of her terrifying master. After the chaos of yesterday, pushing her luck right now is a death wish. So asking him for more training is out of the question. For now, she must keep a low profile and plan her quiet escape. Later that morning, in the main courtyard of the estate, our girl walks out and instantly freezes in terror. Sitting at the table is the grand leader of the cult, waiting for her. The heavenly demon smiles, asking why she looks so startled. He bids the trembling maid to come closer. She approaches slowly, terrified of making a wrong move. The cult leader praises the physician's work, glad she's recovered. When she begins to apologize, the patriarch reassures her she isn't in trouble. But his gaze suddenly turns sharp and deadly. He points directly at his own son, declaring he is the one to blame. Our girl stands stunned by this sudden turn of events. Shockingly, the cruel young lord bows his head in humble apology. She watches in disbelief as the feared young master takes the blame so naturally. The supreme patriarch sighs, questioning if his son is even fit to protect her. The young master vows that yesterday's disaster will never repeat. But the supreme patriarch isn't convinced, refusing to trust his son's word. Instead, the old monster decides to take our girl to the Meichion Pavilion. The sudden announcement leaves the terrified maid completely frozen. She can't believe her ears, realizing her situation just got infinitely worse. Transferring to the cult leader's personal residence means her plans for escape are ruined. Suddenly, a heavy hand slams onto the wooden table with explosive force. The young master snaps, refusing to let his father take his maid. He stands tall, throwing a direct challenge to the most feared man in the land. Even as a son, he refuses to back down from this absolute demand. Our girl watches the family feud unfold with mounting dread. While she's glad he's fighting back, she absolutely dreads going to the main pavilion. Entering that den of monsters means she'll be trapped in the cult forever. At the table, the patriarch's expression turns dangerously cold. A heavy, oppressive aura begins to leak from the cult leader's body. The old monster demands to know if his son dares defy a direct command. The raw pressure of the heavenly demon fills the entire courtyard. Yet, the young master holds his ground, willing to take whatever punishment comes. The sheer force of their clashing wills makes it hard for our girl to breathe. The patriarch glares, testing his son's resolve to the absolute limit. He warns the boy of the terrifying consequences of his defiance. Before things turn bloody, the maid suddenly drops to her knees. She begs the patriarch to take back his sudden command. Bowing her head flat on the stone floor, she takes a massive gamble. She claims she must care for her ailing grandmother. Moving to the main pavilion would make it impossible to see her. She pleads for the cult leader's mercy to consider her family's plight. The heavenly demon looks down, silently evaluating her desperate excuse. He asks if the old woman's health is truly that critical. Reluctantly, the patriarch decides to let the matter drop for now. Our girl bows, thanking him profusely for letting the matter drop. Inside, she celebrates her victory, relieved that her fake excuse actually worked. But the patriarch makes it clear he will still be watching them closely. The old monster orders his son to protect her, and the young master promises no more mistakes. With a final warning, the cult leader turns and bids the maid farewell. She quickly bows, wishing him a safe journey back. As the patriarch departs, a tense silence falls over the empty courtyard. Our girl wipes the cold sweat from her brow, sighing in relief. But before she can celebrate, a hand suddenly grips her shoulder. She turns in shock, asking why he is staring at her like that. The young master glares down at her with a deeply displeased expression. His eyes narrow, signaling another storm is brewing. He bluntly announces they are heading to Sachon early tomorrow morning. The sudden declaration leaves her completely dumbfounded. He orders her to pack her things, leaving no room for argument. Our girl screams internally, realizing her plans for escape are ruined once again. Under the blinding morning sun, Shin Sol-ha prepares to leave. She spent the entire night tossing and turning, trying to concoct an excuse to avoid this dangerous trip. But thanks to her constant training, she is far too healthy to fake an illness. She is officially stuck serving the most ruthless master in the cult. The dreaded departure to Sachon is already here, leaving her no choice but to face it. In the original novel, this mission was supposed to be a secret journey for Jok Igyeon and his bodyguard Chon-gang. Yet somehow the storyline has shifted, dragging a lowly maid into the crossfire. If her presence alters the plot too much, the consequences could be fatal. With a heavy pack on her shoulders, our girl walks out to meet her fate. But just as she approaches the gate, a familiar voice calls out her name. Chon-gang greets her with a warm smile, asking if she slept well. Behind him stands the cold, silent master of the palace himself. Seeing a friendly face at least gives our girl a brief moment of relief. Ijeon wastes no time on pleasantries, stepping forward to ask if her preparations are complete. She quickly assures the young master that everything is packed and ready to go. Her luggage holds spare clothes and basic personal items, but the bulk of it consists of bedding, toiletries, and grooming items for the young master. She even packed an enormous supply of food to satisfy Ijeon's massive appetite. Because of her over-preparation, the massive bundle is now incredibly heavy. Jok Igyeon looks back silently, noticing the struggle. Chon-gang steps in and offers to carry the heavy load himself. Sol-ha panics instantly, protesting that she cannot possibly let someone of his status carry her luggage. Chon-gang points out they must travel fast using lightness martial arts. The young master agrees, stepping in with an even more terrifying offer. If she is uncomfortable letting Gang carry it, he will take it himself. Fearing his wrath, she immediately dumps the massive bundle onto the bodyguard. With their gear sorted out, the group prepares to make their move. As they head out, our girl realizes the journey's true timeline. Sachon is incredibly far away, requiring weeks of travel. She realizes they will be gone for at least 2 months. By the time they return, her cult contract might already be expired. A sudden wave of sadness washes over her as she looks at her master. She wonders if this dangerous mission is actually their final farewell. Hours pass as they sprint through the dense wilderness. Night falls quickly, forcing them to halt and camp in the woods. The ruthless master looks back, checking on his fragile maid. He asks if she will be fine sleeping outdoors for the first time. She quickly plays it cool, telling him not to worry. The dark forest feels hostile, crawling with unseen dangers. But having a literal monster beside her makes wild beasts seem like nothing. She gets to work, tossing out the heavy bedding. She sets up a surprisingly comfortable spot in the dirt. Under a canopy of trees, she prepares the luxurious blankets. To her, this outdoor setup feels like a 5-star hotel. With the master's bed prepped, she looks for her own spot. She tosses down a simple sheet on the grass. The cold dirt actually feels exciting for her first night out. But her peace is shattered when Igyeon looms over her. She panics, thinking she took his designated sleeping spot by mistake. She freezes as the young master suddenly closes the distance. But instead of claiming his luxurious setup, the ruthless cultivator casually steals her simple mat. He tells her to take the comfortable bed instead, leaving her completely baffled by his bizarre logic. She wonders why anyone would willingly reject a perfect bed for the cold ground. Looking up, the canopy breaks away to reveal a breathtaking view of the night sky. Sitting beside her sleeping master, the peaceful silence of the forest starts to ease her tension. Brilliant streaks of light cascade across the heavens. She looks down at the young master resting beside her, stunned by the view. Under the glowing night sky, she feels as if she is standing directly among the stars themselves. But her brief moment of wonder is cut short when she suddenly feels an intense presence. A sharp gaze is locked on her, reflecting her every move in the dark. She sits frozen under the scrutiny, her heart racing as she holds her breath. The young master stares back at her with unreadable, piercing eyes, leaving her utterly lost. Night falls on the cold ground, but sleep refuses to come. Our girl's mind is racing, haunted by the bizarre way her dangerous master looked at her. Instead of fleeing like any sane servant, she froze under his intense gaze, unable to comprehend why she didn't dodge the merciless lord. She knows she's no longer useless, but the brutal tyrant from the original novel is acting entirely out of character. Handing over his own bedding to a mere maid makes zero sense. It is clear proof that the timeline is fracturing, and the cold-hearted Juki-John might be changing. 15 days of relentless travel later, the trio finally arrives in the bustling city of Sachon. The brutal marathon paid off, pushing our girl's demonic emperor flying technique to the 3-star level. But covered in dirt and grime, they look more like beggars than noble guests. She doubts any decent inn will even let them pass the front door. That is when their guide smirks, claiming he has the perfect spot lined up. He leads them to a massive, towering palace rising over the water. Inside, the sheer opulence of the hall takes their breath away. The little maid is absolutely stunned by the extravagant decor, which is far more grand than any ordinary lodging facility. A hostess steps forward with a deep bow, welcoming them to the Huawao. Hearing that name sends shivers straight down Solha's spine. To the public, this place is just a luxury retreat for the wealthy. But in reality, it is a secret stronghold run entirely by the demonic cult. No wonder their guide walked in like he owned the place, leaving Solha to brace for the danger ahead. The guide smirks, fully aware that no one in this establishment dares refuse the son of the heavenly demon. Jeoki-jun maintains his cold, silent vigilance as the hostess prepares their accommodations. But before any grand strategy can be discussed, a loud growl echoes from our hungry girl's stomach. The merciless lord wastes no time, ordering an immediate meal to save his maid from further embarrassment. Soon, hot tea is served to soothe their travel fatigue. The hostess bows out, leaving the travelers to dine in relative peace under the enemy's roof. Eager to unwind, the guide proposes ordering some alcohol to celebrate completing their grueling journey. To Solha's surprise, her dangerous master actually agrees, leaving the choice of drink wide open. The young maid sits up, realizing this might be her first real chance to relax. She desperately wants to taste the local wine, having abstained since entering this brutal world. Sensing her gaze, the young lord asks if she wants to pick the bottle. She hesitates, shocked that a mere servant is being given such a privilege by the tyrant. Solha quickly scans her memories of the novel's famous drinks to find the perfect choice. A memory flashes of her grandmother enjoying a specific beverage, sparking her curiosity. She confidently orders jukyeopjeong, eager to finally taste the legendary bamboo leaf liquor. The guide pours the drinks, raising a toast to their successful arrival in Sachon. With a bright smile, our heroine takes her cup, ready for a satisfying gulp. She tilts the cup back, expecting a smooth, refreshing flavor. But the moment the liquor hits her tongue, reality shatters her expectations. She sprays the drink everywhere in a sudden fit of coughing. Her throat burns as she tries to catch her breath, completely caught off guard. The alcohol is unbelievably potent, leaving her wondering how her grandmother drank it so easily. The young lord stares at her, calmly asking if she enjoys the strong brew. Panicking, she forces a strained smile and lies that it tastes absolutely wonderful. Pleased by her answer, the merciless master offers to keep her cup filled all night. The young master calmly offers to pour her more, noting there is plenty left. Panicking, Solha deflects by asking their guard why he isn't joining them. But Chunggang declines, citing his strict duty to stay alert. His diligence is admirable, but it leaves her with absolutely no escape. Since she ordered the drink herself, she has to swallow her pride. Convincing herself that she can handle it, she prepares for another sip. She tilts the cup back under the night sky, hoping for the best. But her past life tolerance fails her completely as the burning alcohol takes over. Dizziness hits hard, and her vision warps as the cup begins to shake. Before the main dishes even arrive, she completely loses her grip. As she collapses, the merciless lord moves fast, catching her head before she crashes. Completely out cold, she has no idea how close they've just become. Inside the quiet chamber, the young master gazes upon his personal maid. Solha has collapsed into a deep sleep after just a few drinks, completely exhausted. His loyal subordinate observes that the girl must have been incredibly tired. She pushed herself past her limits, but her raw performance is undeniable. The subordinate points out that a novice who only recently learned Lightfoot techniques somehow kept pace with them. Ijin questions the idea of simple talent, sensing there is more to it. The subordinate recalls how protective the young master was earlier, strictly warning him not to lay a hand on her. For a ruthless cult leader, guarding a lowly maid this fiercely makes no sense. It leaves the subordinate wondering if his master has actually developed feelings for her. Snapping back to business, Ijin demands an update on the background check he ordered. But the subordinate reports that nothing peculiar has turned up so far. They even monitored the patrons of the noodle shop where she was raised, looking for clues. Yet the surveillance yielded absolutely nothing worth noting. 17 years ago, her grandmother simply arrived with a newborn baby and started a normal life. Attempting to dig deeper into the old woman's past leads to a dead end. Ijin flatly concludes that his spy has gained nothing. The subordinate admits he is ashamed of the absolute lack of leads. The total absence of information only fuels Ijin's suspicion. He demands to know what the girl's true identity actually is. The subordinate suggests asking Elder Ma, the young master's maternal uncle. Elder Ma is an eccentric doctor who rarely parts with his masterpieces. Yet, he gave away a highly prized ointment to Solha without hesitation. Such a calculating man would never hand over a treasure without a very good reason. Ijin suspects his uncle knows far more about the girl than he lets on. He remembers their very first meeting at the pavilion. Elder Ma had immediately recognized Solha and treated her with unusual, highly suspicious favor. Ijin resolves to visit the demonic medical pavilion the moment they return, dismissing his subordinate to prepare for tomorrow's schedule. Ijin stands in silence, staring down at the sleeping girl. He senses a bizarre, unidentified energy circulating through her veins. For all her vulnerability, she remains an enigma he cannot solve. He has spent weeks digging into her past, but has unearthed nothing. Originally, her blatant disgust toward him was an insult he couldn't tolerate. Yet somehow, the ruthless young master has been completely swayed. He remembers the burning annoyance when other men dared to approach her. Every casual interaction she had with outsiders made his blood boil. And when a hostage situation put her life directly on the line, cold panic had gripped his chest like a vice. A killer like him shouldn't care, yet he risked everything to step in. That raw fear confirmed his attachment was far deeper than he admitted. His anxiety even drove him to drag her all the way to Sachon, terrified his own father would steal her away the moment he looked away. There is no simple explanation for this sudden obsession. He looks down, grappling with the realization that he cannot let her go. For now, his only option is to keep her locked by his side. The next morning, Solha finally stirs, clutching her throbbing head. A massive hangover hits her like a physical blow. She groans in agony, completely miserable after her first taste of liquor. Stumbling out of bed, she vows never to touch alcohol again. But her complaints freeze when she notices a silent figure waiting in the corner. Sitting right there is the second young master himself. Ijin dryly asks if her stomach is holding up after passing out so easily. Embarrassed, she laughs it off, realizing her body has zero alcohol tolerance. She nervously asks what could possibly bring him here so early in the morning, since their departure wasn't planned until later in the afternoon. Ijin reveals he is here to teach her how to flush out toxins using internal energy. Solha locks eyes with her master, eager for a chance to grow stronger. She drops into the lotus position directly on the rug. Eager to learn, she prompts Ijin to guide her next step. He commands her to initiate a complete circulation of her energy. She focuses deeply as a faint aura swirls around her body. But she immediately hits a murky barrier blockading her meridians. Ijin asks if she feels the impurities clogging her system. This sludge is the buildup of toxins from last night. Standing over her, the air prepares to oversee the purge. He explains that clearing the hangover is a simple task. She must target the impurities and incinerate them with qi. The novice maid breaks into a sweat, completely baffled. She wonders how she is supposed to burn things internally. Stealing her resolve, she forces her energy to condense. A massive surge of blue energy erupts, enveloping her. The heat dissolves the toxins, venting steam from her skin. She looks at her hands, her headache completely gone. Feeling completely revitalized, she clenches her fists in triumph. But her celebration is cut short by a rancid odor. She realizes with horror that the stench is coming from her. Her master glares at her, disgusted by the toxic sweat. He orders her to wash up, leaving her utterly embarrassed. Outside, birds soar over the rooftops as their journey begins. Outside the quarters, our young lord waits with his loyal subordinate, growing increasingly impatient as their target takes her sweet time getting ready. Suddenly, the doors creak open, and out steps a completely transformed presence. Solha is wearing a stunning, high-class outfit, feeling totally out of place. She nervously asks if a mere maid should be wearing something this expensive, but the lieutenant quickly reassures her not to feel burdened. They need her to look the part for the dangerous location they are visiting. Still, adjusting to this new life as a noble maid is overwhelming. Then, the ruthless master himself delivers a rare, direct compliment. Seeing the infamous tyrant dressed up and offering praise makes her heart race. Before she can overthink it, she is handed a specialized bamboo hat. Their destination is a hotbed of illegal deals, making facial concealment mandatory. She accepts the veiled headgear, realizing the gravity of their mission. With their preparations complete, it is time to move out. Under the cover of absolute secrecy. Fully disguised, the group makes their way into the shadows. They arrive at a hidden venue filled with other veiled figures. Welcome to the Black Market, an exclusive annual underground auction. This place is so secretive that even the original novel never revealed its mastermind. The guard leads the disguised duo to their designated spot. Despite the danger, the rare treasures traded here are second to none. The Cold Master commands Solha to sit right beside him. She quickly complies, keeping a low profile as the crowd settles. The auctioneer takes the stage, wasting no time with idle chatter. With the crowd gathered, the dangerous bidding war is officially underway. The bidding kicks off with a bang as the first treasure takes the stage. A glowing blue orb, known as the legendary Wind Soul Elixir. But when the host insults the demonic cult, our girl flinches, fearing their cover is already blown. Bids immediately skyrocket past 500,000 yang, sending the crowd into a frenzy. Yet the spiritual medicine that would make most warriors lose their minds doesn't even register to the cold-blooded tyrant sitting beside her. He couldn't care less about cheap medicine. He's here for something far more lethal. Suddenly, the heavy curtains part to reveal a massive covered cart. Solha's breath catches in her throat. The main event has finally arrived. Shrouded in a chilling aura, the ultimate prize is unveiled. It's the heaven-shattering divine sword, starting at a staggering 2 million Niang. The price immediately climbs as desperate martial artists throw fortunes at the stage. Our maid stares in disbelief as the numbers spiral out of control. No one knows who forged this blade or where it truly came from, but every power-hungry warrior in the land is willing to kill for it, because legend says whoever holds it will conquer the entire world. In the original novel's timeline, this is the exact weapon that Jiak Igyan uses to unify the martial world under a mountain of corpses. She knows the sheer terror of his future wrath firsthand. But while Solha doubts the sword's magic, her master has no doubts at all. With a single hand raise, he shuts down the room with a bid of 50 million. Our ruthless young lord raises his hand, dropping a bid so massive it paralyzes the room. The crowd sits in stunned silence as the price settles. Bidders look on in absolute disbelief at the tyrant's sheer wealth. Nobody dares to challenge his outrageous offer. The auctioneer eagerly calls out the final bid of 50 million nyang. And just like that, the legendary blade is officially sold to our lethal master. Solha exhales in relief, glad the original storyline remains intact. But the host immediately announces the final item of the night. It is the very treasure she has been waiting to see. A mystical crimson bracelet said to connect the feelings of true lovers. However, the auction house has no idea of the item's true power. They sell this priceless artifact for a pathetic fraction of its value. Watching this blunder play out drives our maid absolutely crazy. But before she can react, a voice bids 1 million nyang. She turns in absolute shock toward the bidder. It's her master, raising his hand once more, completely hijacking the auction. He is dead serious, staring calmly ahead as if it's nothing. Solha panics, wondering why on earth he's dropping a fortune on a love bracelet. The young master inspects his newly acquired blade, satisfied with the purchase. Behind him, Solha sighs in relief that the notoriously cruel lord approves of the weapon. If he hated it, he might have destroyed the entire room in a fit of rage. But there is still one massive question burning in her mind. Why did he buy that secondary box at the auction? Inside lies an incredibly expensive, glowing red bead bracelet, worth 1 million nyang. She ponders his hidden motives, completely unable to read his next move. Suddenly the young lord breaks the silence, asking if she wants to try it on. He holds the glittering accessory right out to her. Our girl freezes in absolute shock at the unexpected gesture. Sweating bullets, she tries to process this sudden change in dynamic. Seeing her hesitation, the dangerous master awaits her response. She quickly declines, insisting that such a precious item is far too grand for a mere servant. She offers a polite laugh, desperately hoping he will just take it back. But the young master simply looks at the bracelet with cold indifference. If she doesn't want it, he threatens to throw the million yang treasure straight into the trash. In fact, to prevent anyone else from taking it, he decides it is better to destroy it completely. He raises his fist, channeling his energy to crush the priceless artifact. The bracelet is seconds away from being reduced to absolute dust. Panicking at the sheer waste of wealth, our girl screams for him to stop. Bowing quickly, she declares she will gladly accept the gift rather than see it ruined. With the prize secured, their peace is instantly shattered as a subordinate slides the door open. The message is clear. Hostile forces are closing in, and they must evacuate immediately. Without wasting a single second, the group flees into the dead of night, leaving Chengdu far behind. Clutching her new bracelet, Solha pushes forward, racing back to the safety of the cult's headquarters. On the long journey back to the demonic cult's headquarters, Solha quietly plans her future resignation, eager for her contract to end. Yet, recalling her intense training under the young master, she feels slightly wistful. Looking down, she realizes the million yang bracelet is now resting on her wrist. This treasure is actually the Chilche Honghuan, a legendary tool for martial artists. It can accelerate the gathering of her internal energy by several times. With her already massive energy reserves, she could become an absolute master. Suddenly, the young master catches her admiring the very gift she rejected. Flustered, she bows deeply to thank him for his unexpected generosity. He casually brushes it off, pleased that she likes the bracelet. The gentle response catches the weary maid completely off guard. But the peaceful moment is shattered by a sudden rustling nearby. Instantly, both of them register a hostile presence in the darkness. A squad of cloaked assassins steps out, surrounding the group. Rather than reacting with fear, the young lord smirks in anticipation. The enemy leader steps forward, demanding they hand over the new sword. Their loyal guard draws his weapon, ready to clear the path. However, the dangerous master stops him and steps forward himself. Glaring at the killers, he admits he wanted to test his blade. He instructs Solha to watch closely as he prepares to strike. The young master instantly engages, his new blade clashing against the lead assassin. Sparks fly as the assassin struggles to hold his ground against the crushing weight. Solha watches in disbelief, recognizing the patterns of the strike. She realizes he is showcasing the first stance of the demon life sword. With a blinding flash, Ijin shifts his weight, pressing the offensive. He executes precise movements, weaving past the enemy's guard. She immediately recognizes the exact footwork he forced her to train. He is deliberately slowing his lethal pace so she can study the flow. Suddenly, a masked killer lunges at his blind spot, prompting her to shout a warning. But our boy is already 10 steps ahead of his attacker. With a cold glance, he prepares to unleash a brutal counter. A spray of blood painting the night sky confirms the fatal strike. Seeing the casual slaughter, Solha is gripped by a sudden, chilling realization. She berates herself for believing this ruthless monster had actually softened. Aegean continues to tear through the ambushers with terrifying ease. The forest echoes with the sounds of tearing flesh. Channeling a tidal wave of oppressive energy, he stands absolute in the wreckage. He is still the same bloodthirsty tyrant from the novel. And now, Solha remembers the true danger of the beast she serves. Deep in the dead of night, a troubled groan echoes through the quiet quarters. Inside her room, a sleeping figure tosses in agony, gripped by tormenting visions. Shin Solha bolts upright, cold sweat drenching her skin. It is the exact same nightmare that haunts her every night. Clinging to her head, our girl struggles to shake the dread. Ever since witnessing the horrific massacre by Juk Ijeon 2 days ago, her mind has been flooded with bloody, unrelenting nightmares. She sees a forest littered with the lifeless bodies of slaughtered martial artists. Standing over the carnage is the cruel master, eyes gleaming with malice. Seeing the blood-stained earth makes the young maid realize her perilous situation. In the novel, people were so traumatized by Igiel's brutality, they suffered seizures, and anyone who showed weakness was executed on the spot. Knowing this, Solha desperately pretends to act completely normal, hiding her terror behind a calm mask. But the trauma runs deep. Even red soup triggers memories of severed heads. She gasps for air, refusing to let fear break her resolve. To survive this brutal world, she must endure the mental scars. More importantly, she cannot believe the tyrant has actually changed. Stepping out of bed, she prepares for the trials ahead. Until her contract ends, she must maintain a safe distance from him. But suddenly, her senses flare. Sensing an unfamiliar energy, she looks toward the window. A shadow looms just outside, waiting. A hand suddenly grips the sill. A figure leaps silently inside. A masked intruder lands on the floor. He locks eyes with her, completely caught off guard. Before he can act, Solha calmly greets him as Yun Wusong. She waves cheerfully, leaving the deadly intruder sweating in absolute shock. She can hardly believe he actually showed up, raising questions about his true identity. Solha knows exactly who this thief is, and she's ready to exploit it. In the original novel, this guy is a rogue who stole a sacred treasure called the Honghuan. But despite his thievery, he's a righteous warrior who constantly helps the needy. That pure heart made him Solha's second favorite character in the entire book. Sweating under pressure, the thief demands to know if they've ever met. Solha plays it cool, letting him know she holds all the cards. She reveals his entire master plan, down to his secret crush on Lady Dang Hyeyun. He panics instantly, shocked that a random maid knows his deepest secrets. Smiling mysteriously, she tells him that her true identity is far too complicated to explain. Instead, she offers him a deal to help win his crush's heart. Hooked on the bait, the thief eagerly asks if she actually knows the lady. Solha spins a bold lie, claiming they are close friends. She keeps the fabrication going, making him hang on her every word. The deadly infiltrator immediately turns into a stuttering mess. Solha smirks, realizing how easily she can manipulate him. Even a legendary warrior is completely helpless in the face of romance. She warns him that giving Honghuan to Lady Dang will only lead to disaster. In the original timeline, his grand romantic gesture failed miserably. Lady Dang looked at the expensive gift with absolute disdain and flat out turned him down, leaving the rogue rejected and empty-handed. While Lady Dang had her own reasons, this incident ruined her opinion of him, lowering his status to that of a common thief. Still, the stolen bracelet holds a massive secret. Unleashing its hidden power is what will make him a legendary master. Since she took the sacred bracelet that was meant to unlock his ultimate power, a wave of guilt washes over her. To make amends, our girl decides she has to help him secure his happy ending. She tells the rogue to wait a moment and quickly fetches a secret weapon. She hands him a folded sheet of parchment, urging him to take it. The thief stares at the mysterious paper, completely baffled by her actions. She guarantees that what is written inside will serve him far better than any stolen treasure. Unfolding the parchment, Yan Wusong's eyes narrow as he begins to read. Instantly, his pupils dilate in absolute shock. The sheer tactical value of the information leaves him completely frozen in disbelief. See, she has written down a complete dossier on the lady, from her habits to her favorite spots. Clutching the cheat sheet, the thief's heart races as his romantic prospects skyrocket. But before he can start reading the rest, Solha claps her hands to cut him off. She begins pushing him toward the exit to avoid getting caught by the cult guards. Stopping at the window, the rogue asks for her name, before vanishing into the night. Deciding there is no harm in sharing it, she gives him a warm smile. She introduces herself as Solha, sending him off under the starry sky. Looking out the window, she realizes she has deliberately altered the novel's timeline. Though she cannot foresee the consequences of this change, she stands by her decision. Meanwhile, Yan Wusong retreats to a nearby tree, reading the precious dossier in awe. Back in her room, a peaceful smile forms on our maid's face. She hopes this slight push will guide the two star-crossed lovers to a brighter future. Stepping back onto the dangerous grounds of the demonic cult, our girl finally makes her return alongside her dangerous master. Solha looks out at the familiar horizon, realizing they have made it back after a grueling journey. 12 days of non-stop travel bring them home, and she is eager to reunite with her grandmother. But she wonders how she even kept up with these monsters. It turns out the master is highly impressed by her soaring speed. He has no idea she possesses the 7-colored crimson ring. She only trains with it in secret, keeping her true power hidden. With only 2 weeks left on her contract, her freedom is close. She plans to find a replacement maid before she leaves, determined to exit the cult like a true professional. But when she offers to resume her duties, the master shuts her down. Confused, she awaits his next command. He tells her they have an urgent destination the moment they arrive. And his dark expression promises zero room for arguments. Immediately, they storm into the clinic, demanding to see the demonic physician. They enter the chambers of the esteemed Elder Ma, leaving Solha completely baffled as to why she was brought along. An assistant bows, warning them that the doctor is busy with an esteemed guest. The master's face twists in irritation, refusing to wait patiently. Whatever business he has here, it is clear he cannot afford any delays. Our girl wonders if the legendary heavenly demon is the one currently inside. But the terrified guide quickly denies it, ruling out the 6 great demonic families as well. This leaves the young master deeply suspicious of who could possibly occupy the doctor's time. He stops dead in his tracks, demanding immediate answers. But the trembling assistant swears he has no idea who this mysterious visitor is. A cold, mocking sneer escapes our boy's lips. He finds it impossible that the physician's own disciple is kept in the dark. His terrifying pressure flares up, asking if they take him for a fool. Solha gulps, realizing the young master is on the verge of snapping. Without giving him a choice, he coldly commands the guide to lead the way. The guide tries to bring up his master's strict orders, but gets shut down instantly. Realizing his life is on the line, the disciple finally yields to the pressure. And with no other option, he leads them straight to the inner chambers. Stopping at the private doors, the guide nervously announces their presence. Inside the room, the renowned demonic physician registers the sudden disturbance. He turns, demanding to know what the hell is going on. Solha watches in silence, wondering who could make the doctor ignore his own nephew. But the physician coldly orders them to wait until his business is finished. Of course, waiting is never an option for the ruthless tyrant. In a sudden flash of violence, the massive sliding doors are blasted inward. Splinters and dust fill the room as the entrance is completely obliterated. The demonic physician turns in absolute shock at this crazy level of disrespect. Even Solha can barely process the absolute madness unfolding before her. She panics, wondering how a simple clinic visit turned into an active war zone. Yet there stands the beast himself, sword already drawn, ready to confront whatever secret lies inside. Solha panics, wondering why the young master had to destroy a perfectly good door. Inside, Elder Ma absolutely loses his mind, screaming at his reckless nephew. The angry doctor demands to know what the meaning of this intrusion is. He faces the boy, completely outraged by this sheer lack of respect. But Ijeon casually claims he just wanted a quick look at the VIP guest. He mocks his uncle, asking why he would hide someone so important from his own family. The young tyrant's eyes narrow, sensing a deeper secret is being kept from him. He demands that the hidden guest finally step forward and show themselves. Ijeon locks his eyes directly onto the silent figures sitting with their back turned, pointing out that his uncle has never raised his voice like this before. Seol-ha steps closer, staring intently at the mysterious visitor. The entire room falls dead silent as the tension reaches a breaking point. Suddenly, our girl recognizes the posture and clothes of the figure. The guest slowly begins to turn around to face the intruders. Solha's heart completely stops as she stares in absolute disbelief. Sitting right there in the demonic cult's inner sanctum is her own grandmother. Inside the private meeting room, a tense interrogation is underway, as Solha demands answers from the two elders sitting across from her. She wastes no time questioning their relationship with the elder cult physician. But as a dark realization crosses her mind, she slams the table asking if they are actually a couple. The physician coughs in absolute shock at the ridiculous accusation, before explaining they were just classmates at a martial arts academy long ago. After decades apart, they unexpectedly cross paths at a noodle shop, which is exactly how they reconnected after all these years. But before they can explain further, the young master rudely interrupts, questioning if they are truly just friends of the same age. He bluntly points out that the grandmother looks far older than her peer. This disrespect immediately triggers our girl, who defends her grandmother's honor, reminding everyone of the immense hardship she faced raising an orphan. It is a heavy truth that quickly silences the room, leaving the cruel master feeling the sting of his own harsh words. Realizing he crossed a line, the young tyrant pauses and actually bows his head in a rare, polite apology. This sudden shift leaves the lethal maid completely bewildered. A ruthless killer using honorifics is a massive warning sign, and she is certain he must have some hidden, ulterior motive. The grandmother quickly tries to ease the tension, calling it a simple misunderstanding, and begging the young master to drop the formal speech. With the mystery solved, the elders suggest they wrap things up, offering our girl a rare day off to rest at home. The tyrant approves, calling it a well-deserved reward for surviving the journey to Sachan. Delighted by the unexpected day off, our girl cannot contain her excitement, immediately embracing her grandmother while the young master quietly observes from the corner. But as they leave, a dark suspicion begins to consume the ruthless tyrant. He turns to his uncle, the cult physician, demanding answers about the grandmother's true identity. No ordinary person could share a secret connection with a high-ranking cult doctor, and there is no way a master of her caliber would spend 17 years hiding in a noodle shop unless she was desperately running from something. Determined to uncover the truth, the young master demands to know why the doctor is suddenly so invested. The elder simply replies that this matter directly concerns Sol-ha. But when the tyrant cold-bloodedly claims ownership of his maid, declaring it is his duty to know everything about her, the seasoned doctor immediately sees right through his possessive attitude. He bursts into a loud, mocking laugh, completely shattering the tense silence of the room. This sudden mockery leaves the fierce warlord completely baffled. The physician chuckles, realizing how deeply his nephew actually cares for the girl. Recalling the exact moment the cold killer first showed an unusual concern for the young maid. Yet when pressed for the grandmother's secrets, the doctor flatly refuses to share them. This stubborn refusal immediately irritates the impatient tyrant, who demands that they keep the old woman's identity hidden to protect Sol-ha from danger. The doctor assures him the truth will reveal itself in time, dismissing the young master to end the interrogation. But the young master refuses to back down from this interrogation. The doctor insists he has nothing left to disclose. But Ijian points out a critical anomaly that cannot be ignored. He reveals the massive energy inside Solha is nearing a full cycle. A vast reservoir of raw power is locked inside her body, suppressed so perfectly that she doesn't even realize it exists. Only a legendary physician or a top-tier martial arts master could pull off such a feat. And our boy knows his uncle already discovered the truth. The elder shocks him by admitting he heard it directly from Shin-gum. This name drop leaves the young tyrant completely stunned. But before he can demand her true identity, the physician shuts him down. Still, the pieces are finally falling into place, proving the kindly old woman at the noodle shop is actually a legendary master hiding in plain sight. And one terrifying reality now looms over the young master. The grandmother is a hidden titan, far beyond anyone he could ever dare to cross. Solha is shocked to learn her grandmother risked going to the demonic medical pavilion just to get news about her. The old woman admits she panicked when she heard Solha was sent all the way to the dangerous land of Sachon. But our girl tells her there's absolutely nothing to worry about. Her grandmother isn't buying it, knowing Sachon is ruled by the powerful and ruthless Dang family. The Dang clan keeps a tight, absolute grip on the entire region. Anyone who dares step out of line in their territory is instantly crushed. Solha explains they only visited a fishing village and a dark auction house to handle the young master's business. Still, the trip wasn't a total waste. She accidentally ran into a guy who's desperately in love with Dang Hye-yoon. Naturally, the little general couldn't help but meddle. On her way back, she crossed paths with this hopeless romantic. The poor guy fell for the Dang family's daughter at first sight. So Solha gave him some inside advice on how to win the lady's heart. But that instantly raises a massive red flag for her grandmother. The old woman points out that Dang Hye-yoon actually has a younger brother. This slip-up catches Solha completely off guard, making her wonder how a simple servant knows such private details. Her grandmother quickly brushes it off, claiming the Dang family is simply too famous to ignore. For a moment, Solha dreams of a life reborn into luxury, a life where she isn't constantly fighting to survive. But the old woman remains dead serious, warning her that their ties to the cult run much deeper. Meanwhile, a dangerous question lingers. Why did the young master suddenly travel to Sachon? Our girl asks if her grandmother is hiding something. She flashes a smile, trying to ease the heavy tension. Solha begins recapping her dangerous mission to Sachon. She describes the Hwawal Inn and the illegal Huxi auction. The goal was retrieving the legendary, heaven-shattering divine sword. She even mentions the valuable Crimson Ring bracelet she received. But she strategically keeps its hidden functions to herself. Her grandmother sighs, sensing the extreme danger tied to it. The old woman questions its immense value with deep concern. Solha downplays the item, claiming she bought it cheap. Her grandmother warns that wearing such a relic is dangerous. Solha admits the young master forced it upon her. The old woman mutters that their master is hard to please. Solha happily brings up her retirement plan again. But when she suggests traveling together, her grandmother freezes. The old woman pulls away and flatly refuses to go. She insists that running the business must remain her priority. Our maid argues they can easily close shop for a break. The old woman's expression hardens, hiding a deep secret. She abruptly cuts off the conversation to prepare some food. Solha pouts, noting her grandmother always dodges this topic. Before leaving, she reaches into her bag for one last thing. Out comes a glowing jade bead bracelet bought for her. The sight of the green jade leaves her grandmother shocked. Solha presents the gift, hoping to cheer her up. She smiles warmly, expecting a joyful reaction. She explains she bought the beautiful accessory in Sachon. But her grandmother stares at the beads in absolute disbelief. The old woman's hands tremble as she grips the gift. Confused by the silence, Solha asks if she is crying. Hoping for a warm reaction, Solha proudly asks if her grandmother is pleased with the gift. But the old woman remains deeply unsettled, murmuring about the quality of the jade. She immediately scolds her granddaughter for wasting precious money on such an expensive luxury. Later that night, the exhaustion of the Sacheon mission finally catches up to Solha. She collapses onto her bed, completely drained by the brutal physical toll of her journey. Suddenly, a creaking door snaps her attention back to the room. Her grandmother quietly approaches the bed, refusing to let the girl overwork herself. Solha protests, insisting the elder is the one who actually needs to rest. But the stubborn old woman refuses to listen, pushing the maid back down to start massaging her. The old woman presses deep into Solha's back to relieve her physical tension. Under the skilled hands, our girl melts into absolute comfort, completely letting her guard down. Solha praises the relief, but the sudden shift in her grandmother's touch stops her cold. The old woman freezes in absolute shock as she senses something hidden beneath the surface. She carefully probes the muscles, realizing this is no ordinary physical fatigue. Deep inside Solha's body, the flow of her internal energy is remarkably advanced and unique. The old woman's eyes widen as she uncovers a shocking development she never expected. She stares at the sleeping girl, silently questioning what dangerous secrets her granddaughter